Megan set her coffee cup down, hesitating with deliberate care. The cafe was quiet, filled only with the soft murmur of distant conversations and the occasional clink of ceramic against wood. She had chosen this place for a reason. It was their place, the one they had returned to time and time again. A familiar battlefield for what she believed would be a victorious confrontation. "Maybe we need a break," she said finally, her voice carefully measured, a delicate balance of uncertainty and resolve. She wanted the words to land just right, like a challenge, like bait. Jason looked up from his coffee, his expression as unreadable as ever. His dark eyes lingered on her for a moment before he gave a single, calm nod. That was it. No hesitation. No confusion. Just quiet acceptance. A tightness gripped Megan's chest. "I just think we need some space, to figure things out." Jason exhaled softly, as if weighing the thought, then simply shrugged. "If that's what you want." Megan blinked. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had envisioned something else entirely. A reaction, a frown, maybe even desperation. Him reaching for her hands, pleading for her to stay, explain, fight, prove that she was still the center of his world. She had seen it before, ex-boyfriends stumbling over themselves to fix things the moment she pulled away. But Jason? Jason just leaned back, took another sip of his coffee, and glanced out the window, as if the conversation had already ended. Megan swallowed, shifting in her seat. "So, I guess we'll see how things go." Jason set his cup down, unbothered. She hated how steady he was, how completely unfazed. Gripping her phone, she pretended to check a message, anything to fill the unbearable silence between them. Her stomach churned. This wasn't what she had prepared for. "You're not going to—" "I don't know. Ask me to reconsider?" she asked, forcing a teasing lilt into her voice. Jason raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "Why would I?" Her lips parted, but no words came. His gaze remained unwavering. "Steady. If you're already halfway out the door, Megan, what's the point of me trying to pull you back in?" Her breath hitched. For the first time since she sat down, since she carefully crafted this conversation in her head, something shifted. She wasn't in control anymore. The script she had written unraveled before her eyes, slipping through her fingers like sand. She forced a small laugh. "Wow, that's cold." Jason didn't flinch. "No, it's honest." A glance at his watch, then back at her. "Are we done here?" Megan's throat went dry. "Yeah," she said, "but it wasn't supposed to feel like this." A week later, Megan stepped into the cafe again. But this time, Jason wasn't alone. And that's when it hit her. She had made a mistake. In the days following their conversation, she had waited. At first, she felt confident. She knew Jason. He was steady, reliable, the kind of man who didn't let go easily. It was one of the things she had admired most about him. His consistency. The quiet way he showed devotion. She had expected that devotion to carry over into this moment. She had expected late-night texts asking if she was okay. A call just to hear her voice. Maybe even an unexpected knock on her door. But silence stretched between them. By the third day, her confidence wavered. She found herself reaching for her phone more often, unlocking it absently, scrolling through her messages with an irritated frown. Nothing. Not a single missed call. No unread texts. Jason's name remained exactly where it had been, untouched, unchanged. She tapped on their last chat, staring at the final message. "See you later." At the time, it had seemed so simple, so casual. But now it felt different. It felt final. Megan tried to convince herself that maybe Jason just needed time. Maybe he was waiting for her to make the first move. The thought gave her comfort for a while. But by day 5, a sinking feeling settled deep in her chest. The weight in Megan's chest grew harder to ignore. Desperate for reassurance, she did something she rarely bothered with. She checked social media. Jason had never been the type to post frequently, but she figured she might catch a glimpse of him through their mutual friends. What she found unsettled her more than she expected. There was no sign of heartbreak, no cryptic posts, no late-night melancholy. His life had continued seamlessly, without so much as a pause. One of his friends had shared a photo from a weekend gathering, a casual night of playing pool and having drinks. And there he was, Jason, leaning against the bar, relaxed, at ease, no traces of sorrow, no sleepless nights or quiet devastation. He wasn't drowning himself in alcohol or wallowing in regret. He looked fine. Megan's jaw tightened as she tossed her phone onto the couch. Fine. If he wanted to act unaffected, so be it. But the silence gnawed at her, a persistent irritation that refused to fade. She had wanted space, not indifference. She had expected hesitation, longing, something to prove she still meant something to him. Instead, it felt as if she had never mattered at all. On the sixth day, she forced herself out with friends, determined to push away the growing unease. She laughed louder than usual, took more photos than necessary, and posted Instagram stories. Small, curated glimpses of a good time. Proof, if only to herself, that she was moving on too. But even in the middle of a crowded bar, surrounded by familiar faces and the thrum of music, she found herself reaching for her phone, checking, hoping, nothing. By the seventh day, she couldn't take it anymore. Megan walked into their cafe, the same place where she had told Jason they needed a break. She had expected echoes of their past conversations, the weight of memories pressing in around her. She had imagined running into him here, sitting alone, looking like a man with unfinished business, a man waiting for her to come back and admit she had been wrong. But Jason wasn't alone. Megan froze just inside the door, her breath catching in her throat. There he was at their table, but across from him sat another woman, Sophia Bennett. Megan recognized her instantly, though she couldn't quite place where from. Sophia was striking, not in an obvious, attention-seeking way, but effortlessly so. She wasn't overly polished or trying too hard. She simply was. Warm, comfortable, the kind of woman who didn't demand attention, because it naturally found her. And Jason? He was laughing, not a forced, polite chuckle, not the kind of half-hearted amusement meant to fill silences. No, this was real, genuine, easy. The same laugh Megan had once cherished, the one she had believed was hers alone. Her fingers curled into fists. This wasn't right. He was supposed to be heartbroken, struggling without her. He should have been realizing, too late, that losing her was the worst mistake of his life. He was supposed to be lost. But instead, he was moving on, for the first time since she had uttered the words. Maybe we need a break. Megan was forced to confront the one thing she had never considered. Jason hadn't chased her, and, more painfully, he never would. She had never truly believed that he wouldn't. She had assumed that, even if she pushed too hard, even if she tested his patience, there would still be something, some sadness in his eyes, some hesitation in his step, anything to suggest that her absence had left a void. But instead, he looked free, and that cut deeper than she could have ever imagined. She didn't recognize this version of him. He wasn't lost in thought, staring into his coffee. He wasn't haunted by the past. He wasn't drowning in regret. He was simply gone. Jason wasn't waiting for her to come back and make things right. No, he was here, in this very cafe, talking with someone else, completely at ease. Sophia. The name felt familiar, but it wasn't until Megan studied them more closely that everything clicked into place. Sophia had always been there, lingering at the edges of their social circles. Never pushy, never drawing attention to herself. Just present, a friend of a friend. Someone Megan had never considered a threat, never deemed significant enough to worry about. And now, watching her in this new context, Megan realized just how blind she had been. Sophia carried herself with quiet assurance, settling into her seat as if she belonged there, as if she belonged anywhere. She wasn't trying too hard. There were no exaggerated laughs, no lingering glances meant to reel Jason in. She was simply being. And Jason? He was completely focused on her. Megan's chest tightened. It had been a long time since he'd looked at her like that. The way he leaned in effortlessly, his expression open and unguarded, the way his smile reached his eyes. It wasn't forced. There was no tension, no hesitation. Just two people lost in easy conversation, untouched by the past. For the first time, Megan felt something she hadn't expected. Panic. Her stomach twisted, and she had to remind herself to breathe. This wasn't how it was supposed to go when she had suggested the break. She had been certain of herself, confident that Jason would wait, that he would spend his nights missing her, playing memories over in his mind, searching for ways to win her back. But he hadn't. He had walked away without a second thought. And now it was too late. Megan's fingers twitched toward her phone before she even realized what she was doing. The urge to reach out, to send a casual message, something meaningless but just enough to remind him she still existed. It was almost overwhelming. But then Jason laughed again, his eyes meeting Sophia's with an intensity that made Megan feel like she wasn't even there. And for the first time, she understood. She wasn't an option anymore. She had been replaced. Her pulse spiked, and she tore her gaze away, gripping the strap of her purse so tightly her knuckles ached. The walls of the cafe suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. She needed to leave. She barely registered the click of her heels against the pavement as she stepped outside. The cool breeze should have been refreshing, but instead, it only fueled the heat burning beneath her skin. And still, she could see them in her mind. Jason, relaxed, his body angled toward Sophia in an unmistakable way, the quiet smirk playing on his lips as he listened to her speak. That was supposed to be her seat. That was supposed to be her moment. Without thinking, Megan pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over Jason's name. A simple message. Something light, nonchalant. "Hey, hope you're doing well." She typed it out, staring at the words. But they didn't feel right. What was she even hoping for? That Jason would see her name on his screen and suddenly realize he missed her? That he would drop everything, apologize, and come running back? The thought seemed ridiculous. Jason didn't chase. He never had. That had been part of what had drawn her to him in the first place. His self-assurance, the way he never let anyone manipulate him. And yet, she had convinced herself that she could be the exception, that pulling away would make him chase her. But Jason had called her bluff. Her grip on the phone tightened, and before she could second-guess it, she deleted the message. Instead, she opened Instagram. If Jason wasn't going to come to her, then maybe, just maybe, she could remind him of what he had lost. She scrolled through her camera roll, searching for the perfect photo. A rooftop shot from last weekend caught her eye. City lights shimmering behind her, her smile effortlessly radiant, exuding confidence. She looked happy, unbothered, free. It was exactly the image she wanted to project. She added a caption that felt casual, nonchalant. "Love a good night out." The moment she hit post, a small thrill coursed through her. Jason would see it. He would remember. Maybe it would stir something in him. Regret, longing, jealousy. But just as quickly as the thought arrived, it evaporated. Jason wasn't the kind of guy to overanalyze a post. He wouldn't sit there dissecting hidden meanings, wondering if she missed him. He wouldn't even hesitate. He had already made his choice. He had moved on. Megan took a slow breath and forced herself to keep walking. But for the first time in a long time, she felt powerless. And that terrified her. That night, she lay in bed, her phone screen casting a dim glow across the room. Her posts had racked up the usual likes and comments. Friends hyping her up, acquaintances dropping fire emojis, even a few flirty messages from guys she barely knew. But not from him. Jason hadn't liked it, hadn't watched her story, hadn't reached out. The realization settled in her stomach like a stone, spreading a dull ache through her chest. She had been so sure he would notice. Even if he didn't say anything, she thought he'd at least see her, pause, even for a second, and remember what he had lost. But no, Jason wasn't looking back. He had already turned the page. A bitterness she didn't recognize curled inside her. Why wasn't he struggling like she was? Why wasn't he haunted by their history, the way it clung to her like a ghost that refused to fade? She had prepared for a slow, aching game of longing, for stolen glances, for sleepless nights filled with unspoken words, for regret. But Jason had rewritten the script, and she hated it. Her phone buzzed, yanking her from her thoughts. A text. For a fleeting second, her heart jumped. Jason? But no. "Hey, stranger. Been a while. Drink soon? Tyler." An old flame. Someone she had kept at arm's length, just in case. Someone who was always there, always ready to remind her she was wanted. She almost answered, almost let herself fall back into the comfort of familiarity, of knowing that at least someone was still under her spell. But as she stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard, something inside her shifted. This wasn't what she wanted. It was never about Tyler. It wasn't even about validation. It was about Jason, the way he had walked away so easily, the way he hadn't given her the reaction she expected. That, more than anything, was what hurt the most. With a quiet exhale, Megan locked her phone and set it face down on the nightstand. Minutes passed, maybe an hour, and then impulsively she picked it up again. She opened their old messages, scrolling back through months of easy conversations, inside jokes, moments that had once felt unshakable. Her chest tightened. Finally, she typed the word she had been resisting. "I think we made a mistake." She hesitated only a second before pressing send. The message was delivered instantly. And then, nothing. No typing bubble. No immediate response. Just silence. Megan stared at the screen, waiting. Minutes stretched into an hour. And then, at last, Jason's reply came. Her breath caught as she opened it. But there was nothing there. Message deleted. Jason had seen her words and erased them without a second thought. Megan turned off her phone and sank into the weight of her own regret.